In this video, we'll tackle 3 tasks from the 30 Days of React.js challenge. But before we dive in, let's take a moment to refresh our knowledge about rendering lists in React. A list of components or elements is an array or collection of React components that are rendered together as a group. The main difference between elements and components is on the screen. There are 2 types of lists we will discuss: static and dynamic. A static list is hard-coded and not generated dynamically from array. Since they are not part of dynamically generated list, they don't require an eprop. A dynamic list refers to a list of items that can change or be updated dynamically based on the application's state. We can generate a dynamic list using the map function, but you can also use the reduce function for this purpose. Now that we know how to generate lists, let's talk about the importance of the eprop. You don't have access to the eprop from within the component, similar to the refprop. You can use the same value for e in another list. It should be unique only within the current list. The e shouldn't change. Let's take a look at what happens when we assign dynamic values as is. Currently the e is based on the index, and if we delete the second item, we will see that the remaining items after the first item are re-rendered, because their unique props have changed. However, if we avoid using dynamic is, we will observe that React doesn't re-render the items after they are deleted. Now we have enough information. Let's start solving our tasks. The first task is to create a list of items from 0 to 31, where prime numbers are marked in red, even numbers are green, and odd numbers are yellow. I have already prepared a component for this task. Let's start by creating an array of numbers from 0 to 31. For the prime numbers, instead of generating them dynamically, I have created an object with the prime number specifically for this task. If you have any questions about prime numbers, please let me know in the comments. So let's create a list of our items. The next step is to represent our numbers on the page. Each number will be assigned as an e. For the number component, I will create a separate component that receives a num prop and displays it on the page. Now let's add styles to this task. First, let's create a class name for odd, even, and prime numbers, with appropriate background colors. Next, we will increase the size of our items. And add display grid to the list class name, with 8 columns to match the design. We will also add justify content center to center the items within the grid. The last step is to add appropriate class names to the num component. The first class name is isPrime, which checks if the value is present in the prime numbers object. Then we add isEven and isOdd class names accordingly. Finally, we include these class names in the element. And our task is ready. The next task is very similar to the previous task we created in the previous video. It's a simple task and we can reuse the numbers variable from the last task and the generate hexadecimal function from the last video. Let's add numbers. And write generate hexadecimal function, which returns a random color. All we need to do is iterate over the numbers and assign a random color to each element. Now our hexadecimal variable contains 32 random colors. We just need to render it and represent it on the page. The structure is the same as in the previous task. We will reuse the list and item class names, and we will represent our color as a text and reuse it in our styles. That's all for this task. It's very simple one. Please let me know if you have any questions. The last task for today is to represent the top 10 most popular entries. To save time, I will only represent 5 of them. I have updated some numbers and created an object with the details of these 5 entries. First, let's create a populated percentage function. This function will divide a given value by the max value, and then multiply the result by 100 to obtain the percentage value. Now we need to render our array. I will create a table where each tr element represents a row and each td element represents a cell. In each row, the first cell will display the entry name. The last cell will display the population. Then we'll use a progress bar to represent the populated percentage value. Instead of using population as a e, I would recommend using the entry names as a unique value. The last step is to add styles. We'll center the table on the page and apply styles to the progress bar, including 2 background colors, one for the progress bar itself and another for the value. The last task is ready. That's all for today's video. Please leave a feedback below. See you in the next video.